by Riverside.
Well, it's so good to have Sonia on the show. How you doing today, Sonia?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to talk to you. I'm looking forward to having this conversation. Love talking about leadership. So I'm interested to see what you bring to the show and to the guests, to the audience who also like to learn about leadership. So it should be a fun conversation.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm going to give you an easy question to kind of get you started, or at least get you thinking. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
So prior to starting my company, Executive Leadership Consulting, I was the head of internal communications at the Walt Disney Company. And I got this advice from the head of studio production to never say no. So I really learned from them that there's always a way. It's just, what are you willing to pay for it? What consequences are you willing to take for it? And to never say no. And my favorite example was there was a television show called Alias, and they wanted to land a helicopter in the parking lot for one of the scenes that they were shooting, which was against the law in the city of Burbank where they were. And the production manager said, okay, if you want to do it, the fine is $250,000. So, we could do it, but this is the fine. And they said, okay, go ahead. And they landed the helicopter and they paid the fine. And it was just so eye-opening for me to recognize that, yeah, I would never have done that. I would have said, no, it's against the law. You can't do it. Right. And so, but to say, like, yeah, if you want to do it, here's the consequence. And I've lived by that, and I've taught that to clients, right? There's always a way. The answer is never no, right?
I like that. That's really impressive because you do. There is always a way, but there's always a cost sometimes to do it. So I like how you put that.
Exactly. It's like, what are you willing to pay for it? Right.
What's it gotta cost you? I'm curious, what are some of the biggest challenges you're facing lately?
I face the same challenges that our clients face. I'm a CEO, I'm a business owner, and a lot of our, I'm facing the same challenges they are, which is, we're in a time of uncertainty, right? So how do you plan forward for your company, for where you want to go when things are changing so fast that we don't really know where things are going to be, right? And then also the speed of change, right? So how fast things are moving, to be able to keep up with the changes and what our clients need, just like they're trying to keep up with the changes and what their customers and clients need, right? So I would say my challenges are the same as theirs.
You're right, because there is so much happening so quickly, and it's uncertainty. I know in the business world makes people uncomfortable. Our world too, but especially in the business climate, because you like a sense of certainty as you begin to project and plan forward. You want to know that this is going to be pretty much a stable environment to either invest in or expand in, or do we pull back and not do that right now? Do we wait for a more stable climate? So I can understand how this is a trying time for businesses and individuals in general.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, even I think in as a country, right, we're looking at the environment. We don't know where we're going. We don't know how all these things are going to shake out economically, politically, socially, right? Lots of changes are happening, and we have to learn how to deal with that change.
Very, very true. Very true. So what do you think about your skill set? What sets you apart from others in your field?
So we really focus on purpose. And this has come up particularly in the past few years, where younger generations are really making decisions on how they're buying and where they're deciding to work based on the purpose of the organization. So we really look at helping companies and leaders understand, what is your purpose, and then how do you take that purpose and weave it through everything that you do as an organization, from your vision and goals to your process to everything that you do. How do you bring that purpose to life? And so I would say that's one differentiator for us. And the other is, we say we don't believe that culture eats strategy for breakfast. We believe they need to have breakfast together. So we really look at both sides, right? It's not one side, how do you do profits and growth and things like that versus people, and often those parts of the organization aren't talking to each other, right? And they need to, because they support each other, right? The strategy of the company has to do with how do you get the best people to execute on that strategy, and vice versa. The people are the ones that are going to bring that strategy to life. So you need to have both of those things working in harmony together.
It's Peter Drucker quote that I can't actually seem to find.
Yes.
I love that. So I'm always curious, your journey seems interesting. So tell us your personal story.
Yeah, so people often say that I have an eclectic background, because my career trajectory has been kind of strange. Um, so I grew up in New Mexico with entrepreneurial parents. So I kind of grew up with hearing the harder leadership conversations at the dinner table, right? Where they were having conversations about employees or issues that are happening in the company, were conversations they mostly had at home. So I kind of got a leadership education growing up, but I didn't want to have anything to do with it. So I actually started my career as a music journalist, so rock and roll magazines, and then from there went into marketing and advertising, and then that's how I got into communications, which it was the last job I'll ever have at the Walt Disney Company. Doing internal communications was kind of the blend of my experience as a journalist and my experiences in marketing and advertising. And that's where I really became passionate about culture, because Disney's known for having a great culture. And so I saw the best of the best, but I was also there at a time when nobody in my position had ever experienced this, and nobody in that position will ever experience it again, where we had a member of the Disney family leading a shareholder revolt against our CEO at the time. So Roy Disney leading a shareholder revolt against the CEO, Michael Eisner, at the time. And I was the head of internal communications, right? So basically in a company going through a divorce. And so I also saw the worst of the worst in culture, right? And what that did to the company, what that did to employees of you know feeling like they had to have a side or take sides, and all of these things going on in the media that they were reading about the company. And my job was to help them supposedly stay focused and excited about working on with the company. But I also experienced a challenge to my own leadership, and being in that environment and how I was impacted that environment and what I did to my team as a result. And so I really developed an empathy for leaders in what they go through, and in the challenges that they're having and the environments that they're in, and how that impacts how they show up for their people. Um, so that's why I really became passionate about leadership and culture, because I was able to see those experiences. And then communications, has been sort of the through line through all of it. So I'm still very passionate about communications too.
So in your music career, did you cover bands or just music in general?
Mostly bands. So it was like I'll give away my age, but it was like the late 80s, early 90s, when like heavy metal rock and roll was all the rage, right? So was able to, I had a list in college. I made a list of all of the bands that I wanted to interview. And at the age of 23 had completed the list. So I was like, oh, like I've reached my life goals at the age of 23. What now? Right. 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 So and it wasn't like I was shooting low. Like I was in a small town in New Mexico, right? And made it to this magazine, right? So yeah, so it was kind of a big turning point in my life to say, okay, well I've reached this vision. Now it's time to dream another dream, right?
What was the number one band on your list you wanted to interview?
Van Halen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Which was one of the last ones that I did. And they had uh they had a new album coming out, and I made friends with the publicist as soon as I found out that it was coming. and I was able to spend an entire day with them at while they were doing television interviews like CNN and Entertainment Tonight and things like that. Then I was the only magazine that was there, and was able to talk to them in between all of their television interviews. So it was really exciting.
Oh wow, that's so cool.
Yeah,
I love music, so
me too.
it's
Me
neat.
too.
So yeah, I can imagine. That's good. During the hairband era, that's kind of really interesting.
That's right. That's right.
So what led you to write your book? You're an executive, but are you a leader?
It really was my experience that I mentioned of having that empathy for leaders and kind of what happens in different environments. And then also in working with clients and seeing how much they lean on their title to have influence in their team and in their organization, as opposed to really inspiring people and creating that purpose and vision that is going to pull them along. They kind of use their title of executive to push them, right? Which is, you can get compliance that way, but you don't get engagement and passion, right? And I just saw that when you pull people forward through purpose and vision, you actually get, not only do you get higher performance, but you get ideas and innovation that you never would have dreamed from people that are really excited about where you're going and what you're trying to build.
So that word leadership is thrown around a lot. How do you define leadership?
It's do you have people following you? Right, right. Ultimately, do you know
Right.
where you're going, and do you have people following you? Right? It's very simple. Now, there's a lot of complexities underneath that to make them follow you and to engage them to follow you, but at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. Are people following you?
I've studied leadership for almost 30 years, and there's different spectrums, different traits in leadership. Have you found that one particular trait or style is more effective than others, or it just depends on the person?
It's not one particular style. I think it's the leader understanding themselves and their style and their superpower and how to leverage that as a leader. So, for example, you might have somebody who is very directive. That can be perceived as a good leadership style, but it can also be detrimental, right? Because then you're always telling people what to do. Then they're not going to come up with their own ideas. They're just going to wait for you to tell them what to do. And like I said, you'll get compliance, right? So, I think even in leadership, sometimes we have ideas of what styles make an effective leader that have have absolute strengths, but also have challenges as well. And then you have on the flip side somebody who maybe is more quiet, likes to be supportive, and maybe they think that they can't be a leader because of their style. And that's absolutely not true, because servant leadership coming from underneath people and helping to support them and putting them forward can actually be one of the most powerful styles of leadership, right? So I think it's really about understanding yourself and what is your superpower as a leader, and then bringing that to life.
Great answer. Love that. You have a term I want to kind of have you unpack for us. What is red thread leadership?
Yeah, so Red Thread Leadership is our model of leadership at Executive Leadership Consulting. And we, as I mentioned, we start with purpose. And so it has 5 Ps. The purpose is the foundation of it. And then we take that purpose and run the red thread through your plan. So your vision, your goals, your strategy. And then from there, we look at your processes. So that's the third P. And really empowering the team to question the processes based on the purpose and the plan. So, do we have the right processes in place to bring our purpose to life, to reach our vision? And are we doing processes that are no longer necessary based on where we're going? So really, I see in organizations all the time, especially big companies, where they have a process that they're doing it, but it doesn't really make sense as far as where they're trying to go. And you ask them about, well, why do you do that? Like, what's the benefit of this? And they'll say, oh, well, it was because we had Maria was the manager of the team at the time, and she liked to see it this way, or she liked to do it this way. And so that's how we do it. And Maria hasn't been in the company for 5 years, right? So but we're not giving the team the permission to question these things and say, should we be doing this? Is this the right way to do things based on who we are and where we want to go? And then the fourth P is positions, which is your team, right? So who you hire, your organizational structure, and then how you decide who you're going to promote and reward and compensate, and all of those things are your positions. And then the fifth P we call passion, which is your culture, right? So do you have a team that's passionate about what they do, passionate about their role, as well as passionate about the company? And that's all on a foundation of trust.
How do you work people through those different? I love the processes. I thought you were going to have P was going to be one was going to be pruning. But
Process is kind of pruning too, right?
kind of pruning, yeah. So at each stage, how do you move them from purpose to planning?
Yeah, so we actually start with the individual leader and looking at what is their own purpose. Why do they do what they do? How do they deliver on that why? And what can others expect from them as a leader? Develop their leadership brand. And we talked about understand leadership, understanding your superpower. So if the leader of the team understands what they bring to the table first, then that can act as a catalyst for everything else that we need to do in the red thread model. So then the next step we look at is for the team, having the individuals on the leadership team doing the same thing, discovering their why, and then looking at what is the team why, and that establishes the values of the team, right? And then we can take that and say, extend it and say, okay, so what's the purpose of the company? If we look at all of this together, we've gone through it for you as an individual, we've gone through it for you as a team. Now, how do we extend this to what the company does and the company purpose? And then once you understand the purpose, how do you want to bring this to life? Like, where do you see this going? And that creates the plan, right? And that's creating the vision, and the vision leads to the strategy and the goals.
That why is really critical for not only the leader, but for the company as well. And so, how does that why, looking at things through your why, how does it help you with your positioning and your passion? Does the passion naturally flow out of the why?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because you're looking at the why is the foundation of your purpose. It's not some people think that their why is their purpose. We don't believe that. We think that your why is the foundation of your purpose. But we totally agree with Simon Sinek on starting with why, and he has this quote that I love where he says, when we do something that we don't care about and we work really hard, that's called stress. But when we work really hard for something that we love, that's called passion, right? And so that's where, when people feel like they're contributing to a purpose, even if they're hitting those challenges and obstacles on the way, they'll break through them because they're passionate about it. And you can even apply this to something that happens like in your personal life. It's like say you're moving to a new house or you're getting married. Those are significant changes. There's a lot of stress that comes with those two events, right? Um, and but we break through them because we're excited about, we can see what's on the other side. We're excited about it. We know where we're going. We want to go there. And so we break through all those obstacles and stresses along the way because we can see on the other side. And so we do the same thing for organizations, right? Really connecting to that purpose and that vision really helps develop that passion. And then I think the why for the individual, as I mentioned, helps them understand their superpower. What is it that what motivates me? What fulfills me? How do I internally process information? How do I bring that why to life? And then ultimately, what can others expect from me? So we look at the why, the how, and the what, and we bring those together in what we call the why connection to really say, how do you operate? And then when you communicate that to other people, then they understand what you bring to the table and they understand what motivates you.
We talked a little bit before about the fact that you don't a culture can really impact a company. So once you've discovered your why, one of the critical things is making sure that when you do add hires to your company, that they also buy into the why. So how do you help companies make sure that when they're hiring people that share their why, their passion?
Yeah, so first you gotta communicate it, right? Right, and I talk about like, personally, I talk about my personal why in interviews, even for me as a leader. So I talk about the why of the company, but I also talk about my personal why and what's it because I'm the CEO and founder, my personal why impacts how the team shows up and how things work around here, right? So I talk about it and I say, my why is to partner with others to make a bigger impact, right? When I can contribute and really have that impact, then that's what motivates me. That's what drives me. And if I feel like if we're and I'll share in an interview, if I feel like we're not making an impact with a client, we'll let them go because it's not fulfilling why we're here. And then my how is better way, right? So I'm always looking for better ways and sharing them. And so in interviews, I talk about what that means is that things are always changing at ELC, right? That means that I'm always looking for what do our clients need? How do we need to shift? How do we need to change to be able to meet their needs? So if you're looking to work for a company that is sort of status quo and very predictable, this is not it. Right. Right. So I tell them up front, like this is what it's like to work here. And then my what I ultimately deliver is simplify. So simple solutions. And so I talk about, that I don't really like complexity. I'm always looking at how do we take things that are complex and simplify them for people and make it easier for people. I love to take complexity and simplify it. So my favorite thing about complexity is starting to work with it and be able to simplify it for people. And so I talk about those three things, and those connect very closely to what we do as a company as well, like our purpose. And so I tell them, like, what are the downsides of it, right? So the downsides of, are you comfortable with being able to say no to a client that we're not a good fit for you? Are you comfortable with things always changing and looking for things that are better? Are you going to bring your ideas for how to make things better to me, right? And so when you're interviewing people, you can use that to talk about your culture and your values and how you operate. And people can decide if they want to be part of that or not.
So I'm curious, how do you help leaders and organizations? Because you just talked about the word impact. I love that word impact. How do you help organizations have impact? As we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, this is a very strange season for companies. How do you have impact in an uncertain season?
Yeah, I think it's leaning on your purpose, right? If you don't know what your purpose is, then you're going to be very reactive, right? Right. So AI is coming. Do we have to do something with AI? Right. Well, is it part of our purpose? Right. If you can't bounce it up against your purpose and your vision to say, this is who we are and this is where we're going, then you're going to be pulled around by all of these changes and new things that are happening and things that are happening in the environment. And you're not actually going to go anywhere because you're going to constantly be changing direction, going to create a very frustrating work environment, and you're not actually going to reach your goals because you're constantly being reactive and um, changing things based on the environment as opposed to standing in your purpose and your vision to say, yes, okay, changes happen. Is this important to who we are and where we want to go? Then we can add it. If it's not, we're not going to pay attention to that, right? So it's really helping people clarify where where what they should be doing and what they should be focusing on. And I think it also has to do with a lot of issues that we're seeing out in the workplace right now around burnout. This is something that I'm really passionate about right now because the increases in burnout are going up really fast in the work environment. I'm seeing it in our clients. I'm seeing it, in the media and on LinkedIn, right? And I think that it has a lot to do with this reactivity and people not really staying focused. And then on one part, and then also not celebrating along the way. So if you feel like you're running really fast on a treadmill and you're not going anywhere, you're going to get tired. But if you can see we're making progress and you're stopping to celebrate that we are accomplishing things, we are making progress, then it doesn't feel so much like you're on a treadmill. It feels like you're running from one destination to another. And you can reduce burnout that way. And so a lot of it is, reducing those distractions, and that reactivity is going to help eliminate burnout, as well as celebrating those small wins along the way.
Love that. Tell us about your masterclass, how to create your winning team, your winning dream team.
Yeah, so we're very passionate about Red Thread leadership, and not everybody has the opportunity to work with us. So I created the master class. It's only 30 minutes, and it takes you through each of the 5 Ps of Red Thread leadership to create a winning dream team, and then talks about each of them on how to apply it, and then what are some case studies of companies that have done it well, so that you can start to think about how can we apply this to our company. And so for your listeners, it's free, and they can go to redthreadleadership.com, and it's my gift, and they can check out the masterclass and start to apply it to their company.
What do you hope they help them to accomplish by taking this? I mean, so many people want to learn leadership, but when they get through with this, they'll be able to do what for the listener who's listening?
I think it's really thinking about how to create that red thread of purpose. So where do we how can we start thinking about what our purpose is as an organization? And then how can we start to bring that to life through everything that we do as an organization? Because without that, purpose is the foundation, and really creates that red thread through everything.
Great. So once again, what can people, when they pick up your book about leadership, what will they take away from? What's your hope people's biggest takeaway is?
From the book is a little bit different, because the book is talking about more of the individual leader, whereas Red Thread's talking about more about the organization. So, I wrote the book from my own experience as a leader, and everything that I did with it, I thought about myself and what I would want out of a book. So it starts with my story, and what I mentioned as my experience in working with Disney, and then it has 50 tips, starting with how do you create your vision, how do you create alignment, how do you implement this vision, right? And get people to follow you. There's 50 tips around that. And then each tip has a case study on how you apply it. So how did a client apply that tip? And then what are the coaching questions that I would ask you around that? And so you can read it cover to cover if you want to, or you can really look at the table of contents and say, what am I dealing with that I need some help with? And just kind of use it as a coaching resource without having a coach, to think about how would I deal with this situation that I'm in.
If you're taking this book and say, I want to take my team through this, suggestions for how you would lead a team through this book.
I think it would be, maybe using it as a conversation at a team meeting, right? So for example, one of the chapters is called Leading Yourself, right? So taking that chapter, have people read it in advance of the team meeting, and then use the questions on the third page to have a conversation about how do we lead ourselves. And or how do we there's another chapter on continuous improvement. So how do we think about how do we implement continuous improvement into our operations as a team, so that we're constantly improving our processes, right? So kind of taking a chapter and making a topic for a conversation as a team, and how would they implement it.
Great idea. Great. I had the book. I've been plowing through it myself, and I found so many good ideas and tips. And I love the coaching part because I'm a coach myself. So I love the coaching questions, because when we ask ourselves coaching questions and we solve the problems with those questions, we integrate those into our life versus this is somebody's suggestion for me versus me figuring it out myself. So I love the coaching aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah, it goes back to my why, right? Like I get super frustrated when people take either take a training or information and then don't apply it. Right? So like I didn't want them to read the book and go, "Oh yeah, that was interesting information. I'm inspired, but I'm not going to change anything." Right? So I wanted to give, a tool to be able to really think about it and what could they do differently.
Yeah, how many seminar binders do we have on our shelves we've never opened since the seminar?
Right? Exactly.
Right. One day I'm going to go back and look at those again 20 years later. This is a great conversation. But I do want to kind of ask you a question. As you think about your journey and your impact, what is the legacy you want to leave in the world?
I believe that what happens to us at work has a tremendous impact in our lives. Most people spend most of their day at work. And if you have a bad day at work, that can impact your family, that can impact your friends. Like it has a ripple effect when people are happy at work, it has a ripple effect that they can inspire others. And then when they're unhappy at work, it has a ripple effect that they may hurt other people's feelings or create negativity. And so that's really why I love this work, is because I can see when people are excited and happy and fulfilled at work that they ultimately can take that out into the world and it has a bigger impact in the world. So I'd love my legacy to be working with companies that have employees who are fulfilled and creating a great place to work and growing the business too.
Great. Love that goal in your life. Is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
I think, we talked about burnout. So I would just leave your listeners with three keys to think about, whether they're in a leadership position or not in a leadership position, that I use in these times of uncertainty and fast-paced change. Um, one is to understand your personal purpose or your company purpose, whatever it is. Start with why. Why am I doing this? What motivates me, and how can I bring that why to life? And then the second one is really bringing clarity to where you want to go, whether you're personally or as a team or an organization. Where do I want to go? And then the third key is focus. How can I stay focused on those two things? Who I am and my purpose, and where I want to go, and let go of all the other distractions and all of the things that come at us on a day-to-day basis and really focus on that. And that's going to really help you with burnout.
Great, great suggestions and good key points to kind of keep in mind is even though like so many like businesses, so many things around us are changing too. Keeping an idea of who our why is and our purposes helps us to navigate through uncertain times and uncertain waters. So great advice.
Yes, absolutely.
So where can they find your book and where can they connect with you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find the book on Amazon. There's also a link on our website at executiveleader.com where we have a whole bunch of other resources as well on around leadership. And then for me personally, I'm on most social media channels, except for TikTok. But I am most frequently on LinkedIn.
Got to get those dance moves down to be on TikTok.
Yeah, not there yet.
Well, Sonia, thank you so much for being a guest on the show and blessings on the work you do and the impact you're making in people's lives by pouring into them with leadership and guidance. And I love the idea of purpose because I think when we know our why, it helps us to define and also helps us to prune out the things in our life that don't seem to fit with our why. It helps us be more focused in our journey. So
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
thank you, Sonia.